Welcome back to Newsline. We now turn to a chapter of France and Vietnam's shared history.
Important chapters that under French colonial rule, thousands of young Vietnamese men were sent to France as forced laborers. They lived as a parish, stranded in France during the war, but some still partly supported Vietnam's fight for independence. Tune in our story for more.
In 1939, as France entered the war on Nazi Germany, it recruited almost 20,000 young Vietnamese men from its colonies to join its forces. Most were poor, illiterate farmers who were forced to go. They were called Indochinese, the lowest weapons factories, with little food, low pay, and harsh conditions. Many were sent to farms. Some used their rice-growing skills to help restart rice production in France. They built families deeply connected to their homeland's fight for independence through anti-colonial activity. Only others stayed in France, but many already died from sickness and hard labor. Their stories have gradually fallen into oblivion.
The story of these often overlooked workers has been uncovered by historians such as Pierre. Don has written extensively about Indochinese forced laborers. His most notable work for the book Forced Immigrants, Indochinese Workers in France, 1939-1952, has been published in both France and Vietnam on this forgotten chapter of history. Now takes a look.
I went to the Camargue to learn about rice. I saw a black and white photo with two men with this typical Vietnamese hat on a rice. They were Vietnamese. I thought, how come during the war, suddenly two Vietnamese farmers go to France to grow rice? That was not.
Those faces lingered in Pierre's mind. To Dordogne as he dug through dusty folders and uncovered pieces of a history left in the shadows.
It is a chapter of France's colonial past that has been forgotten or because French society is not proud of its colonial history and even feels ashamed of it.
The more the silence puzzled him. Many Indochinese workers never returned to Vietnam. No contact with families. Children grew up knowing nothing of their father's past. Those Vietnamese names on the gravestones.
My father never talked about that time. I thought he was a soldier. Our books in school never mentioned the war. We only learned the truth.
To bring this forgotten history to light, Pierre Dom published books, produced documentaries, and recently launched an exhibition in Dordogne, the first time many French visitors saw the faces of the young men who once lived in their towns. He has also taken the story to Vietnam, lecturing students and researchers about the lives of these Indochinese workers.
Is it something that Vietnamese didn't really know about? We want to encourage people to look for other topics like this because there are many, many such, hidden topics like this that we can still learn from and appreciate.
What started as an unexpected encounter has become a personal mission to connect and ensure that France and Vietnam finally recognize this forgotten chapter of colonial history.
And to better understand the stories of Indochinese workers and Pierre's efforts in reviving this part of history, our reporter sat with Pierre Don these incredible works.
First of all, thank you, Pierre, for joining this interview. You have spent almost 20 years doing a research about Indochinese worker in France. The most difficult task in reconstructing a history that has been nearly forgotten.
That's to reconstruct the history with as many sources as possible. I have to hurry I have to hurry to meet as much as witnesses as possible because they were old. Most of them went back to Vietnam after. I spent 1.5 months to travel through Vietnam. I rented a motorbike. I went through many, many villages. I find like 15 or 20 old men who could tell me their part of the story. Each source of knowledge is very important. So then back to France, I was searching archives. That gave me very important information, the more close to the historical truth.
What do you expect French people and also Vietnamese people?
It was a hidden story in Vietnam. When the people came back to Vietnam after 10 years of exile, they were a kind of victim of misunderstanding. In Vietnam, they thought that during those 10 years, those Vietnamese used to work for the French army, which is wrong, which is false. Now, I talk to people who heard about this story, they know that those people were colonization, and they were not. Every society to know better with more happiness in the present.
Thank you very much for joining this interview and your great insight.
Thank you for your interest for my work.